You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 363, listener Q&A for March of 2021. It's been some time since we've been here and answered all of your questions, and we got a great mix of them this week, or I guess this time, that we're pretty excited about to get to. So I know we've been off for a few weeks. There's been national disasters and pandemics and spring break and a lot of other things, but we took a couple weeks off just because spring break was here, and Jonesy had plans. I didn't have any, and so we gave him. It was really all about Jonesy, and as it is always on the show. And speaking of which, hey, Mr. Jonesy, how are you doing tonight, sir?
Doing well, man. I appreciate it. Anytime you cater to me, I just feel so loved. So I just appreciate the love you give me, brother.
Did you? So I told you right before we went on air. I said I've got a little surprise for you. Did you catch the surprise?
No, I missed. Oh,
you weren't paying attention.
The logo?
Yeah. So
I like that.
I updated the intro with the 10-year anniversary logo. So
yeah, I did notice that. I love that. That's
we'll
great.
run with that for a little bit. I don't know.
Like your little background you got there. It looks like Vader's, grill.
Oh yeah. Have you seen this?
No, I have not.
Maybe we'll get to this. It's a really slick piece of artwork that was put on StarWars.com. I forget the artist's name. He's a Chinese artist, and they got him to do a piece for Star Wars, and it's Vader's mask. That's exactly what it is. And there's a Jedi that's kind of meditating there, and there's more to the picture. You can't see it because it's cropped for the background, but pretty awesome piece of work. We'll pull it up in just a second because we're going to get to the news. So, in fact, let's do that now. Let's segue into it. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we can just follow along. Now, it has been probably, at least 2 months, if not more, since we've done any news. So some of this news is already, I'm going to call it old, and it really is. We just not had a chance to talk about it, so I just kind of want to get your opinions. And some of this stuff, there's really not a whole lot to. For example, this first thing here, The Bad Batch.
Right. Officially
coming out May 4th. They're falling right in line with what Disney Plus has been doing with all of their big releases, whether it be The Mandalorian, the Scarlet Witch, and WandaVision. Sorry, we've got Friday nights now is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So this is what we're going to get on Friday mornings, starting May 4th. Beyond that, there wasn't a whole lot here. I mean, we've seen the trailer already. That's been out. I think they've already got the final trailer, if you want to call it that.
Right.
But yeah, you think you're gonna be jumping in at 2 a.m. Central Time on Fridays once this rolls out?
2 a.m. No, because I haven't done it for really any of them. I think I did one Mandalorian. That's a little past my bedtime when I got to go to work, but I'm still going to watch this show, and I'm going to watch it weekly. And I'm actually kind of excited to see where they go with it around the Order 66 and just how the Bad Batch play into it. So I think that's going to be an interesting storyline, and just to see what else they want to do with these guys and whether or not they really survive, and how long they keep the whole team intact, and maybe how it works with with Cody and maybe Rex as well, or I guess primarily Cody, probably.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm almost looking at this right or wrong. I'm almost looking at this as like Rogue One, right? We know it's safe to assume that, with the exception of the guys that we know that make it into Rebels, Wolf, Rex, and Gregor, we don't know the fate of these guys. My guess is they're gone, and so I'm almost looking at this. Okay, I don't think they're going to make it out of it, which I think would be really gut wrenching, given how much people adore them now, and just how much they've gotten, and how they've become a cool team. Especially this last season that they did with the Clone Wars. But yeah, I don't know that they're going to make it out of the I guess the series, and that's kind of saddening to me. But at the same time, I just can't wait to see what it looks like or how that's going to play out.
Right, and super excited to see Echo back. Right, I mean, this is someone we wanted to. He's now an ARC trooper. What does that actually look like for him? And man, that's really exciting to see some of these characters come back. And I'm sure Mike is excited. Who's the Galactic Marine that's his favorite clone of all time?
Oh,
I can't remember his name.
Yeah, it's the green camo dude. That's
Yeah.
No, if you not
Gree was the commando. Was the camo dude. But yeah.
Well, I thought Gree was his favorite. Maybe I don't know the other one then.
No, yeah.
Anyway, ask him.
I'm sure Mike is excited to see if these guys come back or not.
He's in a hole somewhere. We'll find him, dig him out of that,
Right.
ask him for that. Okay, the other thing that's coming up, which I thought was worth mentioning. So there was the Secrets of the Jedi, and I actually brought this because we're going to talk about this a little bit tonight. Secrets of the Jedi book. I picked this up last year when it came out. It's labeled as a kid's book, like a children's book. And it's fair. I think it's pretty high level. They don't really get into a lot of nitty gritty details. Nothing too immersive. I guess it's pretty high level stuff, but it's beautifully well. I mean, it's beautiful on the inside and what they've done. It's all told through the perspective of Luke Skywalker. And we have the Secrets of the Sith, which is, the opposite of that book coming out, written from the perspective of Palpatine, which,
right.
When this book came out, the Jedi one, Secrets of the Jedi, it's a really interesting, if nothing else, right? Like I said, even though it doesn't really get into a lot of details, there are some cool lines in there and just some stuff that's written by Luke Skywalker, right. That really give you insight into what he was doing, where his head's at, what he's thinking about. They hint at some things without getting into a lot of details. And I'm really hoping they do the same thing with Palpatine, because he is a character, as much as we know about him, as much as we've seen him on screen, we know very little about what his inner workings are. I mean, we can see that and it plays out in all the movies and TV shows, but to be able to see that from his perspective and that first person perspective, I think is going to be really cool.
Yeah, we had somewhat, I don't want to call them high expectations because it was a children's book, but we were hoping for a little bit more from Secrets of the Jedi. So, I mean, it's important to keep expectations pretty managed.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Usually the artwork and these is really fun to look through and to flip through. And you're right. Every once in a while, there's a little tidbit in there that's just something interesting to think through and think about. So I think it's still worth the pickup. It's always fun to be able to have it, especially if you have kids around, and a lot of fun if they like Star Wars and flipping through all the bad guys now.
Yeah, this was $25. I did not pay $25. I got it for a lot cheaper than that. And it almost acts as like a pop-up book too. I'll show you guys here in a minute if you haven't had a chance to see it.
What I'm really curious about though, does Palpatine just dog on everybody? How how they disappointed him, or how Dooku fulfilled his duty and his destiny in order to bring Anakin to the dark side. And so that's the part I'm really curious about, is if Palpatine just has this really snarky kind of attitude to it, or do they really play him as kind of just narrator instead?
Yeah, no, that's
they give him lots of
right.
attitude.
I can't wait to see what that's going to be like. And then I know there was a lot of fuss over, well, they're not, all these guys aren't Sith. And yeah, we know they're not all Sith, but come on.
But Secrets of the Sith sounds cool.
So. Yeah, well, I mean, Secrets of the Sith is where if you're a dark side user, you're probably channeling,
right.
Sith type abilities, powers, even though you may not be officially a Sith. But come on, let's not beat ourselves up about that.
Exactly.
So, all right, well, what was the date on this? Did they have a date on it? I know they... this says it's August. That's all. So you can pre-order it now. It comes out in August. So we'll circle back on this one when we get closer to that. And then I guess the last thing outside of, I'll pull up the artwork. Star Wars Hunters. So this one is interesting. We got
the artwork alone probably got you excited.
Yeah, no, it for sure did. I'm going to play this, and we shouldn't get violated because it's just a trailer. Violated. That's not what I meant to say. We shouldn't be flagged for any kind of a copyright violation because it's just a trailer. We're not showing anything that is copyrighted, to be honest. So, but yeah, I mean, there's not a lot here. I mean, it's got some cool CGI. You can hear the all the sound effects and the voiceover and that sort of thing. But it looks like, it says it's squad based, competitive arena type play. I think Galaxy of Heroes, but maybe on a larger scale, and maybe you can get more custom. You can customize your characters more and pick different heroes and all of that. I mean, it seems like it's in that same kind of vein. And curiously, though, it's it was pushed as part of the Nintendo Switch, which I do not personally own, right. So I won't pick it up on that. And then the only other platform, at least as of this show, that it's going to come out on is the was it Google Play? So Android devices
and iOS. It is going to be on.
Is
iOS.
It on iOS? Okay, it didn't. It didn't list it in here. All it said was the Switch and Google Play was all it said. So maybe that's...
I think it says App Store, which is iOS. But yeah, so it's not really a mobile game. It sounds like it's being developed for the Switch, which is kind of interesting because I don't know where we've had this before. It's free to play, which means it's probably going to be pay to win. Mm-hmm. This is by Zynga. Anybody that's familiar with Zynga, like Words with Friends type of games. So those are expected to be, but with the Switch, that's a little bit different. So it might be interesting. It's supposed to be some sort of, like you said, kind of like Galaxy of Heroes, but it does seem to have somewhat more of a multiplayer and maybe a co-op type of sense. And one of the things we didn't really note, but at the very beginning of that trailer, you have a red lightsaber wielding character, female with makeup and looking pretty fearsome there too. So a completely new character for us to understand where she's coming from. And I'm assuming we're going to see some other source material where this character surfaces to where that it makes some bit of difference, unless it's just some general, acolyte type of thing.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have to be bound by, timelines or errors or anything like that. So it could be really from anywhere. So curious to see where she fits in, if it's anything. I don't want to call it significant because it's a video game, but
right. Yeah.
It seems like the character has to come from somewhere.
Yeah. 2021 is all they said. So I imagine this is going to be something later in the fall.
Yeah. Many of these games tend to be released in the fall and almost into the winter. So we'll have to ask our friend Joe Kane, also on the Barrel House podcast, shameless plug, for his whiskey show. But yeah, he's really into the games and stuff. So he's usually in tune with these. So we'll have to hit him up on Discord and get the details.
Yep. We'll definitely do that. He'll be all over it, I'm sure. All right. Let me pull up the artwork because it is that cool. I want to show that's right. Look at that. So there's the poster. Oh, no, hold on. Let me go back here. And so this is my artist. I'm going to botch his name. I know it. There's the full picture if you can see it there. I'm going to scroll down because it's kind of zoomed in. Actually, you know what? Let me zoom out real quick so you can see the whole thing. You can just kind of take in as much as you can. But yeah, I mean, it's a really wild, cool piece of artwork here. He called it Master Tribute to the films. Yeah,
I would like that print, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be really neat. So for those who are listening into the podcast, it's kind of a silhouette type of Vader's helmet, but you can see through the eyes and through the grill with a Jedi with his lightsaber floating beside him, but a ripple pool, like he's sitting in a ripple pool with a reflection behind him. Yeah, really neat.
I think the reflection, is that Vader? I think it's his reflection as Vader, yeah.
Yeah. So presumably it's Anakin, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But really cool artwork. Yeah, go out to StarWars.com and check it out.
Yeah, great stuff. But yeah, I was like, I've got to use this as a background because it's just that cool. All right. I think that's, I don't know. There hasn't been too much that's been going on that we needed to cover, but I felt like, hey, it's been a while since we've touched base on some of the news, and we'll get back to that once, in future shows and ongoing shows. So quick shout out to Steph, Dante, Chef Chris, and Tuan, who all checked in so far. If you're watching live and you want to drop in some comments, we will give you a shout out here a little bit later. So, okay, let's do this. Let's jump into the questions. I was going to preload these and throw them up on the screen. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to do that. There was too much going on. So we'll just go old school and read them. And
we don't want to subject you to our poor spelling and grammar while we're in a hurry either. So
right.
We're doing you a favor, actually.
Yeah. By the way, just as a reminder, was plugging it, but we've got a free copy of Into the Dark by Claudia Gray. And at the very end of the show, we'll announce the winner. We picked the winner of the question that we thought was the coolest, best, whatever you want to call it. And we'll announce that at the very end of the show. So you don't have to stick around. You don't have to be present to win or anything. But if you win, please respond soon so I can get this shipped out. Otherwise, it's just, taking up space on my shelf at this point. So, all right, let's jump into it. If you don't mind, I'm going to go first. I'm going to ask the first question and you can answer it since this seems to be right up your alley and you may have a little bit of biasness. This is probably the most controversial question we have tonight, and I just want to get it out of the way. Okay, let's just pull the Band-Aid off and get it out of the way. Question, say his name again. Uthal for maybe not that long. Is that right?
Yeah, Uthal is what we usually call him.
Okay, we just call him Uthal, but sent us in. He's one of our Patreon members. Said, who has the best beard, goatee, or facial hair on screen in all of Star Wars? Now, the majority of the answers that were, even though we say please don't post the answers to questions in the Discord channel, overwhelmingly, I think it was like 99.9% with like 8,000 votes in favor of Jonesy's beard. But apart from Jonesy's beard, Jonesy, your beard, who's got the best facial hair?
So I think, first of all, there are a lot of good beards in Star Wars, and we should kind of talk through. This is the first half of the show, folks, so you're welcome here. So you've got some really nicely manicured beards, like Count Dooku's beard is really nice. Oppo Rancisis with his big old shaggy beard is something
special. You took my answer, but go on.
Oh, man, that is something special, let me tell you. I mean, you've got what's his name? Crix Madine's fake beard. He had another fake beard in Star Wars. So, and then, but when you're talking about like the good ones, though, I actually think I really like Galen Erso's beard. Actually, it's very well manicured. It's got the salt and pepper stuff going. It's really good, and not many people think about his. But I think you still keep going back to Episode 3, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's still probably the best one of the bunch. If you're going porn stash, you either got to go Biggs or Lando. But it's just so it's a toss up as to what you want to do. But still, I think it has to be Episode 3. Ben Kenobi or Obi-Wan Kenobi with a close second to Galen Erso. So surprise there for most people, I'm sure.
I was thinking about
shout out to my boy Joris Sabath.
Yeah, who did? I didn't see that one coming. He's got a pretty massive beard. I've always liked what's his name, Kirak. Let me pull. I can throw him up because I had him pulled up.
Oh, that's wicked. Oh yeah, from the Vader comic.
Yeah, from the Vader comic, the Jedi Master that kind of laid the smackdown on him until Vader cheated. But hey, whatever takes the win. No, I just like it. The whole look is
Luke's TLJ beard, similar like that I liked that one a lot too, even though it was a bit scraggly. But this one's really nicely manicured. Exile does a number for your hair and beard, apparently.
Yeah. We've got some other people that have checked in. Jonathan McMahon. Yep. Let's see who else. Oreo dog vomit. Wow. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm intrigued. Dante says Oppo for the win. And Chef Chris says Galen's beard is on point for sure. Yeah. So good. So those of you who haven't seen Oppo Rancisis. Yeah. Let's pull up an image real quick of him.
There he is on the right.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, come on.
Special. I mean, he's also got manicure of the year too.
Jeez, I don't know. He's just like he's like a beard with eyeballs. Like there's not much. I mean, he's all beard. It's just the freakiest looking thing.
He's like a Wookiee that just got it all wrong in life.
Yeah,
That's
right.
kind of what it reminds me of.
And out.
I'm pretty sure this was in the holiday special as a Wookiee.
You should put him something on there. It says crack never once.
Right, yeah. This is Chewbacca's great uncle that no one ever talks about that only shows up at certain Christmas events like every 3 years. Is not invited anywhere.
Right. Nobody likes to bring this guy along. All right. Enough of that. That's a 40. Chris says that's a 400-year-old Jonesy right there. Oppo Rancis.
If I've still got that much hair, I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
Challenge accepted.
Right. Look at Yoda. He ain't doing so hot.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead. Next question.
All right. Next question. All right. Back to the serious stuff. And this is from Utini, again, another one of our Patreon members. So scenario, you were just exiting your first viewing of Return of the Jedi in 1983. Suddenly, your future self from today's date. Hold on a second. They got cut off. From today's date stops you. Future you says, Star Wars storytelling is going on 40 years later. 1983 you says, wow, what's the craziest thing that happens in Star Wars? So what does future you tell 1983 you? So it's not intended to be a cynical question, but in a we love Star Wars even when it gets crazy and weird kind of way. So again, that's from Dante. So what do you think? What does future you tell 1983 you what craziness to expect over the next 35 years?
We will never know about the fate of the Wookiees on. No, I'm kidding. That was Clone Wars. No, so I think, I thought about this. There's a lot of things really. It's a great question, to be honest, because there are so many things that either because we didn't have a lot of the facts coming out of the original trilogy that, Lucas had in his head. And so we just were left to speculate and ponder and all that. And then on top of that, you have the sequel trilogy, which, right or wrong, for better or for worse, didn't always, play or align sometimes with the storylines and threads that were dropped in, the previous 6 movies. So with that, in all seriousness, the one that I think really gets me the most, and it's been talked about, people have talked about it cheekily, and people have really come down on it pretty hard. Some people actually really enjoy it, but the fact that Vader and Palpatine's grandchildren hook up, right? Or they hook up and kill Palpatine again, right? That whole dyad thing. I think that would blow people's minds, especially like if you have no context of the prequel movies and you're coming out of Return of the Jedi and Vader just kills Palpatine. One, now your mind's blown because Palpatine is still alive, which, some people felt like he probably did survive. I think a lot of people at that point felt like he didn't because we didn't know about, Plagueis and escaping death and all that. That was all prequel stuff, right? But that, on top of the fact that it's, that it's the grandson of Vader and the granddaughter of Palpatine would somehow come together and have a relationship and kiss and be the dyad and all that stuff. I mean, that would be like really, like, how do you get there, right? But that's my answer. Sticking to it.
I'm trying not to shed a tear right now.
What about you? What's yours?
I had a few things come to mind. So one, 36 years after this, Chewie's finally going to get a medal, but it's not really an official medal. So you had to wait that long just to get one. I know we got one on Smuggler's Run. It doesn't count.
No.
And it had to be like around the way before he got this stupid medal. Yeah. So I still feel bad for Chewie. He's still the odd man out. But honestly, there were a couple other things that came to mind. One was you're going to get about 10 years worth of Clone Wars. Like literally 10 years worth of Clone War material that's going to explore everything you ever wanted to know about the Clone Wars.
And then some.
And then, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. We're talking 10 years and going. And this was a time when it was mentioned in A New Hope that it never seemed like it was ever going to be explored. And while it might not be crazy, it's just crazy to think that we were going to get so much of that content. You could even say that you're going to get all of these other things. I think the other thing that would be a bit of a surprise, and this isn't supposed to be cynical or anything like that, but that, hey, you're going to have books and stuff come out over the next, 15, 20 years, and then we're going to completely reboot it. Mm-hmm. And we're going to completely, say none of it ever existed and we're starting over. And I don't say that to be critical. I'm just saying that would probably be a shock to someone. That would be crazy. Like, well, why would you invest 20 years or 20 plus years into something only to say it's no longer canon and to get rid of characters and things like that? People would probably be left scratching their head as to what was to come. We purposely kind of avoided Luke Skywalker, it looks like. But
I thought about it. Honestly, I put a lot of time into this question. I had considered it. Hey, Luke Skywalker's going to be on an island, and he's going to end up. He did some really horrible things, and he doesn't seem like the character you just saw that threw the lightsaber down, said, "No, I'm never giving in. I'm here." Family, all that stuff, and we're not going to rehash all that, right? I honestly did think about that, but in my mind, I keep telling myself that Luke Skywalker is out there. There's still a lot of time that happens between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, right? So that is the time of when that. Now, granted, it's unfortunate that we probably won't see that as Mark Hamill. We won't see Mark Hamill playing Luke Skywalker in that role. But will all those stories be told? I'm willing to put money on it. They're not hiding this for any reason. I think it's just a matter of time. So it's not gone at least in my head, in my own head, Kenyon. It's there. There are plenty of years after the events of Return of the Jedi where Luke Skywalker is everything I thought he was as a 10-year-old boy walking out of the theater from Return of the Jedi in '83. Yeah,
I mean, there was Force abilities, freezing a blaster bolt and things like that. There were moments that are really cool and kind of crazy too. But this is a question we'd really like to hear from all of y'all, either on social media or on Discord, of what would future you tell 1983 you if you walked out of the theater? Because I think this is a really good question for just the entire fan base to really kind of think through and explore and just kind of be honest with yourself about, how you would respond to this kind of craziness that you would hear. I think it would be a fun conversation to have as long as we can keep it civil.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is unfortunate we have to say that, but
right. Well,
reality is reality.
Yes, it is. All right, let's do Formalis this question. So Tuan, another Patreon member, says, at the end of Obi-Wan and Maul's fight in Rebels, he's asking a Rebels question. Maul asks Obi-Wan who he is protecting. Is it the Chosen One? To which Obi-Wan says yes. Why did Obi-Wan say this? Anakin was the Chosen One but turned to the dark side. But then why would Obi-Wan think Anakin's offspring, Luke, to be the Chosen One? Well, we see this fleshed out in the Obi-Wan series.
Right. I know you love Rebels. Do you want to take a stab at it first?
Oh, sure. Twist my arm. So this actually is explored a little bit in some of the books and stories. Nothing on screen that I'm aware of. I think it will get explored a little bit more in the Obi-Wan series. In fact, I would love for them to do this because I think it changes the dynamic of when Obi-Wan meets Luke Skywalker in Episode 4. Like it really seriously does, because so in Obi-Wan's mind, he was convinced when they were on Mustafar and Anakin was gone. I loved you like a brother. You're like my brother. That whole bit right there, that's Obi-Wan really turning away from Anakin Skywalker and saying this guy will never be anything more than that, right? He's the epitome of evil. He's turned to the dark side. He's never going to come back. And in his mind, that prophecy was mistold, right? Misread, like Mace Windu had once mentioned, right? So in his mind, then now fast forward, suddenly there's this child that's born. And in Luke Skywalker, in Princess Leia, the prophecy talks about it's a male. So he immediately clings on and says, okay, well, we were just off by, one generation, or it was misread. And this is truly the chosen one now. And he takes it upon himself to go and be the hermit and protect him. And there's stories in there where there's stories in there from a certain point of view and some other stuff where he went out and at one point he actually meets Owen Lars and protects them from being raided upon, and Owen punches him in the face and is like, don't ever come back here again. Right. I mean, so he's had this really horrible, I wouldn't say horrible, but turbulent relationship with the Lars homestead and being stuck there, but knowing that his duty is first and foremost to protect the chosen one. And so when he meets Maul in Rebels, Maul finds comfort in the fact that of all the people that have been sent to Tatooine to protect the chosen one, it's Obi-Wan. And it gives him some satisfaction because if you remember at that point, he's had it with the Sith. He's out for vengeance as much as to Obi-Wan as he is with Emperor Palpatine. And so he's looking at this and that's why he looks very satisfied when he says that he is the one that he is the chosen one, realizes Obi-Wan's been sent there to protect him, that he probably will have his vengeance, right? Palpatine's probably going to fall because Obi-Wan's guarding the chosen one, and the chosen one will eventually bring balance to the Force, which means, I guess in Maul's mind, Palpatine's going to go away as much as it is in Obi-Wan's mind as well. So that's kind of where it's at. I mean, he's very steadfast about it. Like he doesn't deter, he doesn't defer from that at all. He is 100% bought in on the fact that this is his chosen one at that point. And so that kind of puts a little twist on things when you see him in Episode 4, right?
Yeah, I agree. There's not much more to add. I think we're going to explore some of it. I think we kind of have to. And again, I like that you pulled the reference. I think that was from the comics, right, where Owen punches over.
Yeah, it was the comic.
Yeah. So I think there's material to kind of pull from there, and I'm hoping they even drew a little bit of the Kenobi novel in some ways. But yeah, I think we need to explore this. I think we need to see why Obi-Wan's perspective and why he buys into this all of a sudden, why he buys into it with Luke, and then just how Obi-Wan maybe interprets Maul's words, and whether or not this really sticks with him or not, or if we just kind of move on past this. I'm curious what kind of lasting effect this had on Obi-Wan, really, if any. I mean, they were rivals for so long, and for it to end so swiftly and then kind of in a somewhat touching moment, and with the way that it ended, it would be very curious to see if this was something that was replayed in Obi-Wan's memory as kind of a flashback. I think it would be really interesting to see this on screen, and I think would really be a fun callback for Rebels fans in particular.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait. I really do, again, hope they do it. And throw in Yoda there as well. I don't know if, that may be a little far-fetched, but getting his perspective on the chosen one, because, he's always had that ominous line of, no, there's another, and maybe right. He may not have been talking about in the pure context of a chosen one. Again, going back to from a certain point of view, there's a number of stories there that kind of cover that. So, all right, you got the next one, or is that me? I don't know anymore because we're
all out of wax. Why don't you ask it?
Okay, Fan Solo says in Return of the Jedi, and Fan Solo is a Patreon member. At night in the Ewok village, Luke reveals that Leia is his sister, and she replies that she's somehow always known. Do you think she means that she grew up sensing she had a sibling through the Force, but didn't really know what that feeling meant? I haven't read Princess of Alderaan, so maybe they touch on that in the book. They don't, not that I remember. No, they don't. Also, if she always knew Luke was her brother, what's up with the smooch on Hoth? Jonesy just did a little shimmy.
A little shimmy shake there.
Shake.
When people say these things, it's always retrospective. So she didn't know much. She probably felt there was a special connection. That's how I've always viewed this, is that some people you just know you are destined to be in their lives and they're destined to be in yours, even if it's off and on and things like that. And that's how I took Leia's comments to be, is that there's always been a special bond between them, even though it wasn't ever really romantic of sorts. They had a connection, but they didn't really know what that meant. And when you have that type of connection with someone, sometimes you feel like it's romantic, or it could be romantic, but really it's brotherly and sisterly.
Plutonic,
and this time it just happened. This time it just happened to be literally that way. But that's how I've always seen it, though. I think it's just when you feel you have that type of, spiritual connection at that point, and they already have these feelings that they can feel between them. So there's something else there that they just hadn't been able to put words. And then as soon as it's out there in the open, it's one of those moments of, oh, well, yeah, of course, that just makes sense. So,
yeah, I would. Yeah, I agree
on that.
No, same thing. I think the only thing I would add is in that moment in Empire, she's doing that more to get to Han, right? More than she has any feelings for Luke, period. And that's why, and Luke knows it. That's why he throws his hands up, kind of like rubbing it in the face of Han Solo, and Chewbacca laughs at him and all that stuff. Right. That's really what it's about in that moment. And he just happens. I mean, she's got a couple choices. She can either kiss Luke, Chewie, or 3PO, right? So, or maybe R2. So yeah, she's just going to go pick him to kind of get under his skin, and because there's definitely feelings between those two there, Han and Leia. But yeah, I would
honestly
agree.
Those three characters deserve it more than Luke or Han.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they deserve so much more. But yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, it's just it's just that bond of another being that you're very close to. You're not sure what that looks like or what that feels like. It just you have an affinity towards them, but you can't really pinpoint what that is. Is it platonic? Is it just brotherly love, or am I in the friend zone? Right, all that is kind of what you feel out as young kids, and I guess even older people too, right?
Right.
That natural bond to somebody. So, and then obviously empowered by the Force, right? There's that whole spiritual, cosmic aspect of it all.
Thing.
Yeah, whatever that is.
All right, thanks, Fan Solo. Next one, Star-Lord07, longtime friend of the show, and of course, another Patreon member. How much information do we have about Darth Plagueis the Wise? What is your favorite fan theory regarding Plagueis?
Oh, well, sit back, kids. Albert's got a tale to tell. No, I'll try to keep this short. So
you thought we were going on a great pace this evening.
Right. No, my friend, we've hit a wall. Okay, so as far as Plagueis, Plagueis is really difficult to explain because prior to Disney, we had the novel. And that was a whole lot of information that we'd all wondered about. And then Disney came in and said, okay, that's no longer canon, right? So there's all this legends material, and I can certainly speak to all of that.
Right.
But I think it's probably more, maybe not more important, but I think one of the more important or interesting aspects of Plagueis is a lot of what we know to be canon has carried over from Legends, right? So, that he's a Mun, that he trained Sheev on Palpatine on Naboo. That was still all in there. We know Sheev killed him in his sleep. There was a lot more detail in Legends with him getting him drunk and then, killing him with lightning over and over again and making him suffer and all that. We don't get a lot of details, but we just know he did die in his sleep in some way, and Palpatine was behind all of that. Another one that carried over from Legends is the whole midichlorian thing. He was really into manipulating midichlorians, and that was kind of how he saw his way to eternal life. It did expand upon that a little bit in that Plagueis had figured out that he could transfer his consciousness into another body, another vessel. And this comes from the novelization of Skywalker, or
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. I had to look at the shirt. Right, no, I'm kidding. Rise of Skywalker. So that came from there. So that was again, we knew that he was in search of eternal life. We just didn't know the details, and we got so as a positive, I guess, for the Disney era, we at least got the details into how that actually worked. And then we. The other really cool aspect of him, and with not a lot of detail, it's different from Legends, was that he was actually trying to make Sidious and him a dyad. Like, he was trying to force that dyad relationship upon them, and it never worked. And then Palpatine tried to do it with Anakin, and it never worked. And so, that kind of builds a little bit more story when you get to the dyad, when we get to the Rise of Skywalker, but that was never in the Legends piece of it, right? And so okay, so that's all the canon stuff, and then the Legends stuff was way more interesting because there was just a lot more that happened, right? His Darth Tenebris and Darth Venomous, who was another apprentice that Plagueis had, was out trying to kill Palpatine, and he was kind of playing. He truly believed in the rule of two. We know Sidious killed, Plagueis killed his master when they were down in a cave, and there was all these rocks that were falling down, and his master tried to hold the rocks, and Plagueis made the rocks fall on him and killed him. And then as he was laying there dead, I mean, this guy Plagueis cold-bloodedly walks up to him and tells him, "I did this to you, and I'm going to figure all this out, and I'm going to get rid of the rule of two. It's just going to be me. I'm going to be the supreme ruler," and this sort of thing. So I mean, he's a pretty nasty guy. On top of that, he had a lot of money. What was it? His family was like a banking clan or something like that, or I forget what they were.
Yeah,
but he
that's what moons were, I think.
Yeah, he was well off, and he had tons of money, and because he had this much income at his disposal, I mean, he was kind of like the Batman of the Sith Lords, right? He could just go out and do a lot of things and had a lot of power and use a lot of the money for influence and power. And how he meets up with Sheev is eventually he realizes, or he finds out that that Naboo has these really huge reserves of plasma on the planet, and he wants to take advantage of that, exploit it. And there's a whole story in there about how he finds that information and then ends up killing all the people that told him all that. But when he gets there, that's when he finds Palpatine, and he has kind of a special affinity. He knows that, hey, this guy is really strong in the Force, in the dark side of the Force. Eventually convinces, if I'm not mistaken, Sidious or Palpatine to kill his whole family, his mom, dad, sister. And it's at that point that, he reveals himself to be a Sith and says, I'm going to teach you the ways of the dark side. And, Palpatine's like, yeah, I'm all in, sort of thing. So I know I kind of jumped around, but I mean, that's kind of high level what Plagueis is. Most of that, again, is legends, but I think we've gotten a lot more in canon. It's just, it keeps coming in like in, in these books, right? Or the visual dictionaries, they just slip in one little line, or the, I forget what there was another one that they just very nonchalantly threw something in there and like, oh, okay. I guess that's, kind of important. So it hasn't been anything, they have not released a Plagueis novel or anything about him specifically, but you just got to kind of piece it all together from all the stuff they released since then.
Yeah, it was really disappointing when the Plagueis novel was not canon, and it was kind of close to that cutoff point, because there was just so much in there that we could draw from, and especially building into Palpatine's history. And I really hope that they revisit this. I hope that they do decide to do something different with or not different, but I hope that they do decide to revisit Plagueis specifically, and that even if we only touch a little bit on Palpatine, we at least build, put the building blocks in there. And like you were saying, they've got a lot of connection now with Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
There's a lot there to tie into, and you can build throughout, 9 saga movies plus everything else in between that we have now. So there's a lot more they could do with it, and they could really think through the character and really build it out and draw on all of the different things that we've learned. But the thing that you didn't touch on, though, was, what is your favorite fan theory? I mean, there's like a bajillion of these things. I can't even remember a quarter of them. But is there one that's just totally outlandish that you remember that's just, you just can't help it in your head?
Outlandish? Yeah. I mean, it was the Jar Jar Binks theory that he was Plagueis, and then that was Snoke. And I mean, that was pretty far-fetched out in terms of different theories. I don't know. I don't know if I've got a favorite one in terms of who Plagueis was. I will say this. I am looking for, I'm willing to bet at this point, and then we're still really early on in the High Republic, but I'm willing to bet we're going to get a mention, if not more, of who he was before we get out of the High Republic. I think they may retell it. They'll probably have some of the pieces here that we're talking about, but I think we're going to fill in some of the blanks, at least on his origin stuff. Like, they've done a really good job of everything from Sidious on, of kind of pulling over the big high level bullets for who he is. But I'm wondering, I have a feeling they're going to touch back on the origin stuff, and I think we're going to see that. So whether we see Plagueis himself, or Tenebris, or Venomous, or, I don't know, some of those characters early on, or maybe even his own parents, and how much of a jerk Plagueis' father was to him. He was terrible to him. I would be interested to see some of that in the High Republic, and my guess is we are going to see that. So really not a theory, but it's more of a prediction or a speculation on my part.
Right. Marchion Ro is Darth Plagueis. We'll just start this anew.
He's the new Snoke, really. There's so many theories out there.
Yeah, they were all over the place too. It's like Snoke, we wanted Plagueis to be somebody, and now it's even more mysterious how this plays into it because we've got the High Republic, and I'm glad you brought this up because we don't know how the Sith of history now fit in with the timeline coming into the rise of the Empire and then the fall of the Republic. We just don't know. Now it's this black box. Even more, it seems like more of a black box than it was before because now we've got this light side, and hopefully with maybe Acolyte will give us a little bit of that connection there, and maybe. And I'm with you. It'd be really cool if we did get a touch of Tenebris or Plagueis mentioned or something within all of that, or a search for a master, whatever that might actually look like. I would really like for us to start to revisit some of that. We're getting this real light side tale right now, and that's presumably outside of the Sith and the dark side. Well, the Sith, at least in particular. Are we going to do that and flip and go the opposite? Kind of like what they've done with the comics. You have the Vader series, and then you have the Star Wars series with just really following Luke and the band.
Yes.
But there you go. As usual, we spend way more time on Plagueis than we probably should have.
Yep.
No offense. Thanks for the question, though, our Star-Lord.
Yep. All right. Fist of Fury says, I'm always struck by the final line of the Grand Inquisitor in Rebels. He says, there are some things far more frightening than death. Do you think this was prompted more from the Inquisitor's personal experience or Vader's reputation? Do we know from canon at all what kind of training the Inquisitors had?
Right. This is difficult to actually see what is truly canon. When we were kind of looking through this, and we were talking a little bit before the show. The training, first of all, the Inquisitors were supposedly former Jedi. I don't know if that's completely across the board, though. But they were light side Jedi that were corrupted, that were helping to chase down the Jedi, during the purge. Well, the Jedi purge, I guess, not the Mandalorian, whatever. Okay. Anyway, back on topic. But what we do know is that the training of these and how they broke them was by Vader specifically once he learned of the program. And so Vader put them through their paces, and Vader basically semi-tortured some of these people. Like dismemberment was commonplace, and he was teaching them, pain and loss and all of these different things. So it was kind of mental torture as well as physical torture. And you can imagine Vader, the things that he felt about himself, largely inflicting upon all of these others. And we've seen this in some of the comics, other materials of where they will gang up on Vader. And so Vader he'll take some shots, but Vader has to really dig deep and shows them what the true nature of the dark side is and what his true power, really still is, even though in his current state. But so when we're talking about the Grand Inquisitor, it seemed very clear to me that this was clearly a relation to Vader, of what Vader will do to him should this not go well, because they've been chasing them for a while. They keep slipping out of his hands, through his fingers, and Vader is done. He's fed up with this. If he fails, he will probably, I think I'm stealing kind of your words here, probably a long and enduring torture.
Yeah.
And not a quick and painless death. It would be very, very cruel. And I think you had a little more to add on that one, though.
Yeah. So this question actually was posed to Dave Filoni back at the end of episode after. So this line from the Inquisitor, there are some things far more frightening than death, actually comes from the final episode of season 1 of Star Wars Rebels. And at the Dave Filoni was asked specifically about what that meant, and he kind of clearly stated, "Hey, this is him saying the hands of Vader is a fate far worse than death, right? And knowing that he's failed, he was, again, like Jones said, he was pretty much on thin ice with Vader at this point. This was his last chance to kind of redeem himself, and Kanan's got him, with double lightsabers in his hand, lightsabers in both hands." He's hanging from a ledge, and the easiest path, rather than trying to stay and fight, or trying to fight Kanan again, or surrender to Kanan, the easiest thing would just be to let go, which is what he does. He just lets go and he's like, "Forget this. I'm done. I'm not gonna face Vader. I don't want to face Vader. That's way worse." The easier path, per Filoni, he says that the easiest path for him was to just kill himself at that point. So. And he really, and of course, in great Filoni style, I encourage you to go look up the article, and because he goes on way more than just that. Like, he really gets into this whole discussion about, giving yourself up for death and stuff like that. And what would Kanan have done? And, was it easier for Kanan? Was it easier for Kenobi? Kenobi, he gets in this whole thing about Kenobi killing Maul and thinking that was the end of it. But was it really the best thing? No, because it ends up biting him later down the road, because Maul survives and kills Satine, and yada yada. Right, it goes on and on. So I mean, it's typical Filoni. But go read up on that. It's actually a really good explanation from him. So the only thing I'll ever ask as well is, with the Grand Inquisitor, we know that he had a Temple Guard background. He kind of churned. He was a Temple Guard originally. So he already came into this role with some Force abilities and some Force training. And I guess in my own headcanon, like you said, it's kind of sketchy in terms of where they got specifically their training. I'm with you. I think Vader probably honed their skills and maybe did that in maybe not the most nicest way. That's probably bad grammar, in the nicest way. But yeah, I mean, he had that. And then I always saw Vader as kind of like hands off. Like he probably gave some stuff to the Inquisitor to train. And I kind of thought I always saw it as like a train the trainer kind of model where he went and helped the brothers and the sisters and did their training and helped bring them up. And of course, again, they've got their own backgrounds and they're Force sensitive and all that. So it all kind of came naturally. But maybe in Secrets of the Sith we'll get some more. They were actually brought up in this book, in the Secrets of the Jedi book, but it's very high level. They don't go into detail. They just talk about what we already know and what we from the show, but they are in there as well.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, we see the lack of discipline and they're just really chaotic with what they have. Their skills are not refined at all.
No.
They don't even have a purpose in the dark side or in what they're doing except hunters. So they're just really bounty hunters with lightsabers, and they don't have any other direction beyond that. So nothing that Vader really thought much of, because really he was perfectly content with killing them off one by one, or let themselves kill them off, and looking for excuses to kill them whenever they failed. And I think, I forgot which sister it was, helped someone escape or something like that. And Vader hunted her down and
killed her.
Yeah, killed her. So he didn't think too much of the program. Thank you, Fisto. All right, Terrence, T-Flu44. So Terrence, old friend with Patreon once again. How do you feel about the new Force powers and technology that was introduced in Light of the Jedi that we don't see again? So I'm assuming this means we don't see it in like the saga era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got
we
a lot
touched
of
a little bit on this, I think, as we went through the book. But if you had to summarize some of that, what would you?
The way I would summarize it is, I've got a lot of questions, really, because there's, it's kind of going down one of two paths for me. And again, I'm not declaring anything. This is purely me, my headcanon, and what I've gathered from the book so far, from the High Republic books. But it almost feels like I love the fact that, first off, that the Jedi in the High Republic era can do these crazy things, and it's almost effortless. Like, you think about where we are when we get to the original trilogy, especially, and even in the in the prequel trilogy, like they really struggle. And like Yoda, granted he's old and stuff, but even like Dooku, well, that's another example. He's old, but most of the Jedi seem like they really are like having to put forth a lot of effort to do things that appear to come off effortlessly by Jedi that are much younger than them, and so to me in my headcanon, I'm thinking, okay, so because they're so in tune with the Force, these abilities come naturally. They can do these really incredible, spectacular things. I almost look at it as though they've got favor in the Force. I know that may be controversial because I know a lot of people tend to like stay down the line of the Force is just the Force, and you can't touch it and manipulate it and all that stuff. But
what does balance mean? Right.
Yeah. What is balance? Right. We're going to get all that. And that's fine. I'm not going to try to, talk you down off your ledge any more than you should mine. But yeah, so it almost feels like they're so in tune with it. And these things are so effortless that I wonder if one of two things happens. Like either they fall out of grace with the Force in some way, and because of the events of the High Republic over the next 3 years, maybe that turns out to be the case. And so that's why they are, not as adept, or things don't come as easily for them. Mm-hmm. Or they purposely suppress some of the abilities and all that. I can't find a good reason as to why they would go that route. Maybe, whether it's, they've destroyed temple or archives, or these lessons have been lost, or maybe there's some big event that happens at the very end of the High Republic that puts them in that state where they're not as in tune, or they just don't have the knowledge of the ancient texts are suddenly gone and they don't have a way to pass this information down, or they get so decimated that they've got to rebuild again, much like we get with Rey Skywalker in The Rise of Skywalker. Maybe that's the case. Maybe they, we don't know what the period is there. Maybe they had to rebuild. And so a lot of those lessons were lost, and a lot of those knowledge and those teachings were lost. So, but if it does feel like there's something there, it does feel like there's a reason why we're not seeing the feats that we did, outside of the fact that in reality they didn't have the technology and these stories weren't panned out and they really couldn't pull this stuff off right. I mean, we can explain it from, a real perspective.
From a storytelling, storytelling and technology aspect,
yeah. But I love the fact that they can go back now and kind of put a why behind it, and I hope they do. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I viewed the High Republic as this era of enlightenment. And if you try to compare this with historical references of what we've seen historical when societies rise and fall, usually there's some sort of event that is sometimes we see gradual, fading off of dynasties, but usually there's some event that really kicks that off. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle that with High Republic, because presumably that we're still going to end with the Jedi plentiful and still very well respected and things like that, because that's where we are when we get to Phantom Menace. It's still at that point, even though things are falling apart underneath their feet. So, but I always viewed this era of enlightenment where they're open to more things. They share openly and share willingly, and that kind of brings me to Phantom Menace era, where maybe the Jedi are also just less willing to share or to be open with sharing their techniques. And we start to see, and we've seen this with the Dooku audio drama, and we've seen it in various other medium, where the Jedi are afraid to explore certain things, and they are very protective over certain things that they don't want to explore. So what you start to have is little sects and silos start to create out of all of that.
Yeah.
And you start to get pockets of knowledge rather than sharing and distribution of knowledge and debate and decisions to do the best, and rather than the council being part of it. In the High Republic, it seems like there are a lot of opinions that are welcome and accepted, and we see that even with the chancellors kind of helping direct more of this in a more, a bit more altruistic form. At least it seems as of right now. But so those were the two things I landed on why we don't see some of these things. The technology is a really interesting question, with presumably the lightsabers as keys and things like that. I'm going to go with it was just really expensive to produce those type of things. And it probably required a lot of attunement in order to do those. I can't imagine them contracting these things out. We're going to get into like Death Star contractors and things like that. But, what it takes to do these things and power them, they probably found just more efficient ways and still accomplish roughly the same type of things, especially if you need to mass produce. So there we go.
Yeah. I mean, you could also
we've
say
all the fun out of this topic.
I know, right? There's there's also like the, you kind of sparked something for me here. The level of hubris and, just how egotistical they probably could become, to the point where they feel like, what, we don't need vectors and we don't need those vehicles and we don't need to be able to craft fancy lightsabers that are whips and all kinds of stuff. And they go back and all we need is, what we've got. We don't need the armor anymore, right? We just need a Jedi robe, and they go more of a Puritan kind of way of celibacy and stuff. We're going to get to that question in a little bit. I got some insight on that one.
Yeah, we aren't warriors type of mentality. Right?
Exactly right. And I think that's probably, I think part of that factors in. It may be a combination of all of this. I mean, again, we're 3 years out, so it's really hard to speculate at this point, but it is just, it is really going to be interesting to see all these pieces kind of fall, the domino pieces start to fall. And I can't wait. I mean, these poor guys, what they're going to go through.
I don't know. Thanks, Terrence. Great question, man.
Okay, where are we at? We're on Mr. Cab. Another Patreon member says, we know little to nothing about Taika's Star Wars movie. If it leans into his comedic style, what story would you like to see told that would match the tone?
Calrissian Chronicles, hands down.
Calrissian Chronicles.
I'm not even lying. Yep. Calrissian Chronicles. It's got to be. Could you imagine that style of movie making, that style of writing, and Donald Glover? And even like L3 or and just that banter and all of that goes with it. If you think back to Thor Ragnarok with him and the Hulk and everything else, oh my goodness, it would be fantastic. I would love to see that. I would love to see this. I don't have another option. I mean, it's that one or nothing.
Really?
So,
wow.
Well, no, that's
throwing the gauntlet down.
I do have others, but when I just think about fitting of style and of fun factor, that's the one that comes to mind quickest for me. What about you?
I was going to try to pull up the image because I was so latched onto it when they did the announcement back in December.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the image of it's like a cosmic image, and then we had what looked like Mortis. There was like that little thing, and it was like freaking people out.
Right.
So, well, it's freaking me out. I don't know about everybody else, but so here's my take on Taika Waititi. I'm still holding out for the Old Republic, because even though we have the High Republic, again, I will go back to this book. It's already 3 times. So in here, they actually mention the Old Republic. So it's still canon, right? And I know a lot of people are like, oh, is the High Republic replacing the Old Republic? And that's no. The Jedi still have existed for 1,000 years, right? Generations. So that's still canon. So that's good. But I love the fact that he was able to take something that I normally wouldn't associate with comedy, like Norse mythology, right? And put a spin on it that was really comedic. The timing was great. The writing was great. It was funny at times. But then when it needed to be dark, it was dark. And when it needed to be serious, it was serious. And that is really exciting. Like, I mean, it feels like it would be kind of a rehash or redo of what he did there. But I still would love to see it. Like, selfishly, I would love to see the Old Republic portrayed in that manner where you have the comedic elements. And if you played those games, they do have some lighter moments. Maybe not to the extent of what we saw in like Thor Ragnarok and the other movies that he did, but there are some lighter moments in it. But yeah, I would love that take on it. I'd love to see the lighter elements of it and just have fun with it. But at the same time, be able to get across some very serious story threads and tones and all of that. The dark side is so prevalent in the Old Republic that you can't escape that, right? It's always going to be there. And so just being able to balance those two would be really cool. That the whole dichotomy of that would be really awesome. So that's where my head's at. That's where I'm hoping he goes. When I look at that, when I think about that image that was shown in December during the kickoff thing, and I can't really I used to have it as a background for this thing, and I got rid of it just like 2 days ago. So I would love to see that. I'd love to see that. That image is what got me thinking about the Old Republic. And I'm even talking further back. I think we talked about this in the show, didn't we? About back to Zersh and the pyramids and all that stuff. I mean, that's
right.
Way back. Proton packs and stuff like that. I mean, and that's fine. I'm like down for all of that, right? It would be a stark difference than the High Republic, because the High Republic feels old, but it's not new, and this would be a really stark difference if they went that far back into the archives there.
Yeah, I think Nick in the chat won the day. The Adventures of Jackson by Taika Waititi.
Well, you know what? There's been a lot of Jackson lately. I don't know if you've been watching like news feeds, and there's some action figures that are out. I think they did a Black Series?
Black Series, yeah.
Yeah. There's a comic. I mean, it's just, who knows? I would be for it, but at the same time, I'd be so let down because I'm really just banking on the High Republic.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So that wraps up our Patreon questions. Again, if you're a Patreon subscriber, when we do the Q&As, no matter how many questions we have, we guarantee getting to all of them. So thank you for all the support. And now we will move on to Discord. So Steph and Annabelle, kind of a 2-parter-ish here. So one, how much of a chance was there that Obi-Wan left the Order for Satine? What do you think the odds were of that?
Man, I was, dang, Steph, what are you doing to me? So all right, as much as I love the relationship between Kenobi and Satine, and as much as I was devastated by the fact that she died, I don't think in my heart that they would have ever like taken the next step. I don't think they would have crossed it. From Satine's perspective, I think the feeling was mutual. I almost feel like Satine loved Kenobi more, but that's just me. But I don't think she would have done that to him. I think she respected the fact that he was in the Order and respected his personal beliefs, which I'll get to in just one second. And she was so busy, so occupied with getting Mandalore. Right? I mean, she had enough problems of her own right now, trying to get Mandalore to buy in on this whole peaceful era, right? And amidst all of the turmoil and people trying to rise up against her and stuff like that. So that was all. She had a lot on her plate already. The bringing in a Jedi just seemed like it would really complicate things for her. And so I almost like Leia, right? I mean, she kind of has her thing. She's going to do her thing. I kind of saw her as that. But then the other side of that is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he's such a by the book guy, that I just can't see, as much as he loved the fact that and touted with he was in love with her and they kissed and there was a relationship and all that. But I think he just wouldn't be able to bring himself to the attachment piece, right? I think he was just that disciplined, that fearful or mindful, at least, of the dark side, that he would not cross the line and really find himself attached. And I think that's why they broke away for a little while and they came back. And of course, they had their moment when she died and all that. They kind of rekindled their relationship, but I just can't. I don't know. I can't see them. I can't see them doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it was this commitment to duty, and I think we got a really good sense of that in the show, where they were responsible for their tasks. They couldn't commit to the relationship because the things that were needed of them were much bigger than anything they could do as a couple. And so while I don't know that it was 0%, I think they probably talked about it at some point. So I think if you talk about it, there's at least a percentage chance. So we'll call it maybe 5 or 10%. So I don't know that it's 0 as the Four Stroke podcast came in here. So thanks guys for checking it out. Chef Chris, a lot of people are in YouTube, by the way. He asked the question in the chat. But so there was at least a small chance, because I'm sure they talked about it, because every young couple, young lovers talk about running away. It was much like Anakin and Padme. What if we just dropped all this and ran away and, gave in to impulse and everything else? And, cooler heads tend to prevail whenever you're committed to a cause. And like you said, Obi-Wan has always been very by the book. Yeah. But we also know that he had this change, right, with Qui-Gon, and he started going through a bit of a shift. And we don't know quite when, at least I don't remember when Satine and Obi-Wan were, first kind of hot and heavy, if you were, with their relationship. So I think, but I think they would have talked about it. And to me, it seems like Obi-Wan, and I think this just got put in the chat here from Dante. Yeah. Dante said, didn't Obi-Wan say that he would have left the order if Sabine would have asked? And I think this is the way I viewed it too. Satine, very much like Padme, was so committed to their cause, and they felt like they had a purpose to serve, that Obi-Wan had enough of that streak. And I believe you're right. Dante's question.
No, I believe he's right. Does. Yep.
Yeah. And I think there is that chance, like if he would have done it at the right moment in time. Now, would he have regretted, or maybe he would have caught himself after the fact? That might be the case, but I think definitely he felt that within, like, oh, okay, I'm not going to find this ever again. So why not? But again, both are very dedicated to duty, and it seems like it was still a very low chance they would have wisened up at some point, and probably would have been Satine.
Well, and like I said, I don't think she would have. She would have never done it, right? Again, out of respect and everything else. Maybe she would have done so had he proposed or asked her to. But if I'm not mistaken, that line is said as she's like dying, like it's her last dying breath, right, or in the arms of Obi-Wan. So I don't know. I don't want to take it out of context. I mean, I think it's important that
she always loved him, right?
Yeah, and that was, and like I said, I don't disagree. Like I agree that they both loved each other. I just don't know. I can't believe that Obi-Wan would have crossed that line, even if she had asked him, to be honest, or vice versa, right? Maybe it was just said in the heat of the emotional moment of her death that kind of all happened. So
that's a good point.
Like Tawan just brought it up too. It happened. What did he say? He said, yeah, didn't he say it when she was about to die? If so, it might have been just a passionate statement. Yeah, thank you. You said it better than I did.
Good call. Okay, so let's get to the other part of the question here. So Annabelle, her Steph's daughter, asks how to make a lightsaber, what the colors mean, and why they are the way over time. She loves listening to the show and would love to hear us explain it, especially now that Rey has a different color than what was normal in the original Star Wars movies. And now we have the High Republic hilts, which are different. This is a very big question. So the next 6 hours, we're going to discuss the anatomy of a lightsaber and what all the colors of the lightsaber mean, which I think we talked about several months back.
It was like over a year ago. We did a lightsaber show, I thought.
Yeah, well, we're still not sure if they actually mean anything anymore.
Well, no. Yes and no. Okay, so...
Afraid they have some.
Yeah. All right. So Legends, and I'll keep this short.
Sure.
So Annabelle, listen, I'm talking to you now. In Legends, they used to mean something. So like if you had a blue lightsaber, you were a guardian. You were somebody that was out there to really just protect people kind of like all day long, right? If you had a green lightsaber, you were kind of like a counselor. So you were kind of mysterious and you weren't really that strong. You weren't maybe the person that would go defend people, but you were, you could use a lightsaber and you probably could heal other people and keep people, like help other people in that way. And then if you were yellow, if you had a yellow lightsaber, you were a sentinel, like a guardian. So you were always at attention. Think of like a soldier, right? You were just kind of standing at attention, protecting people, the guard, like a guard in front of a building or a guard in front of a temple, something like that. So that was the old way. And then when Disney came in, which is probably just before your time or right after your time, they are the lightsaber colors don't. All it says is that they are a reflection of the person. So they do mean something. We don't have a lot of details. Like it's not like yellow means you this and blue means you that. It's not really like that anymore. So here we go. And I'm going to show you real quick because I did save this page. And this is the cool thing about these books. Like I said, they're sold as children's books, but they're almost like pop-up books because you can see this piece kind of lifts up. I'm showing people now here if you're listening to the podcast. But I'm showing the book here. And so it talks about the colors here. These are the the 5 colors that are primarily that we see in lightsabers. The only one that I think tends to be very consistent or the same every time is red, meaning that you're kind of a bad guy, right? You're part of the dark side, and you got to make the red lightsaber. You got to make it bleed. Now that's kind of canon. But apart from that, I think it does say that yellow is more of a balanced character, and that is directly from this book. Again, it talks about the yellow bladed lightsaber, the yellow kyber crystal. That it is more for somebody that's balanced. So somebody that's in tune with the studies of the Force as much as they are in tune with the powers and the combat of the Force. And I think that's why the significance of Rey, why she gets the yellow, because, she's got all the Jedi texts. She was a quick learner, quick study. She's really powerful with the Force. So she gets that really unique one, that unique color that we've not seen in a very long time, at least in the movies. We saw it in Clone Wars and, I think in Rebels, there was a piece in there. But yeah, in terms of like just normal Jedi, it hasn't been used in a while because I think they're trying to show that Rey is very balanced in that way. She's a little bit different than all the other Jedi. So she gets a very unique color lightsaber, at least for the era that she's in or the era that she just came from.
Right. The hilt and the housing has been always the one I'm most interested in because that's usually the one where you see the most character because the Jedi and even Sith would construct multiple lightsabers over the course of their lifetime. And I think we saw this as recently as Light of the Jedi in the High Republic book. But we've seen this over and over. And depending on where you come from, you can make it out of different materials. Like we've seen some made out of bone or out of a rancor tooth and things like that. In the Legends material, like Tenau Ka and Tahir Vela, some of these characters had really interesting lightsabers that they had constructed, and they just have different shapes to them and everything else. There's a few that I think are still canon, even though most of the ones you see on screen are all lightsaber. But if you're a Wookiee, then you tend to have one that's got some sort of wood in it, and you can even see like the one behind me. This is more of an old Republic style, but again, you just have these different flavors, and it reflects who the Jedi is. The makeup or the mechanical aspects of the lightsabers are usually relatively consistent. I think we've had a few notes where they are different. We have a kyber crystal, and the whole kyber crystal thing is a completely different side of things too, because that's changed over time. And we're going to get Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars here pretty soon, and they have a whole Ilum sequence. So I'm excited for her to go watch those shorts as well, because you do explore a little bit more of that. But even the kyber crystals, you can only see the kyber crystal that is meant for you. And presumably you maintain that kyber crystal throughout your Jedi life or career. And you just reuse the same kyber crystal. So a lot of different things. It's a really huge question, and you could go into a lot of detail with it. It's a really good one. And it's actually a really fun discussion if you were like, just get tons and tons of notes and really dedicate a lot of time to it. And so,
well, yeah. And I still got a little bit more to say.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. So a couple. The one thing that I forgot to touch on. So the crystals themselves, when you go find them, they're translucent. Like they're clear, right? You don't know what color it is until you pop it in and you ignite it. And if you watch the YouTube game show, what is it? The Jedi Temple show, whatever it is. That's the whole point of it. They get to the very end, they pick a crystal. They don't know what color it is until they pop it in. They ignite it at the very end. If they make it through the whole challenge, and it lights up. And I think this is the same thing at Galaxy's Edge, right? I think you can kind of pick that though, but
you pick those.
Yeah, it's supposed to be whatever. So that's part of it, right? You don't really know what color you're going to get until it turns on. So the color kind of finds you, type of thing. In this book, there's a whole section in here where Luke Skywalker is talking about Jedi assembly and what he went through to create his lightsaber and what that was like. And he really makes it really basic in terms of how it's assembled and the pieces and the components that go into it, which is kind of neat. On that, I want to just talk about. So Chris brought it up. There's a couple things from the High Republic that are starting to surface that have caught my eye around lightsabers. Number one, there is a character in this book, right? So, A Test of Courage. So this is the young adult novel. It's really thin. It's very small. There is some good stuff in here about lightsaber. And I think I mentioned this on a couple shows ago when we were talking about Light of the Jedi. I said, there's something going on with one of the characters. That character is, I call her Avon. I don't know what her real name is pronounced. It's spelled like Avon, like the cosmetics. But if anybody's listened to the audiobook, please tell me how to pronounce this. But I call her Avon. So she's a kind of a tinkerer. And at one point, she meets a Jedi named Imri. And she watches Imri kind of disassemble this lightsaber. And I guess I'm going to ruin the book. So close your ears for like the next 10, 15 seconds if you want to read this and understand what's going on. But she ends up taking one of the lightsabers out of a bag and she runs away with it. She's so interested in manipulate or trying to understand, like decompose and reverse engineer the Force and reverse engineer a lightsaber and all that I'm starting to wonder, like, if there's things that come about from her that are going to have some really big repercussions down the road. And I know it's kind of silly to say that because this, again, is a young adult novel, but they play it up so much and there's such a big spotlight on it that you have to wonder if there's going to be something there. But if you want to know more about that, there's a great passage in here where he's talking about the lightsaber and what it means to assemble it and all of that. And then the last thing is what Chris brought up. There's Vern, who you can see here. She's got the purple lightsaber. She's actually modified. She's gone through and modified her own lightsaber to become a whip when she wants. And so it becomes like this flimsy kind of whip thing. And she's using it to kind of hack through bushes and stuff at one point. She ends up using it toward at the very end as kind of her main weapon to attack. But that does speak to, like you mentioned, sorry, to kind of bring it back to what you were talking about. It does get into how much flexibility and individuality they have in the Old Republic and how much they can customize these things and stuff. And so again, that all kind of, when we fast forward to the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, we don't see a lot of that. So again, there's stuff that they're doing in the High Republic era that doesn't carry over. And there's probably a very good explanation as to why. So all that to say is I think we're going to know more about lightsabers than we probably ever wanted to from a canon perspective. There's plenty of stuff out there from Legends, but from canon, I think you're going to find a lot more in the High Republic because you have characters that just have very unique lightsabers and you have people that are tinkering with these things and disassembling them and trying to reverse engineer them and do really cool stuff. So look for that as we get closer and more High Republic stuff comes out.
Yeah, and one thing still seems to remain somewhat true is that the creation of the first lightsabers is very much a rite of passage as well. It's one of those moments of maturity and growing up. And I think that's why we see them change over time too, is their needs change and their wants of how they want to do this change. But yeah, very, very detailed question. So maybe go check out that book. Yeah, no,
I'm going to keep plugging all this stuff. All right, where are we?
Email.
That was Annabelle. Okay. Claus de Michelle, Star Wars question. In Light of the Jedi or other books, do you think there will ever be more detail about Jedi romances or other partnerships? Thanks for the podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, it's strongly hinted that we're going to understand a little bit between Avar and Elzar Mann. We've seen relationships throughout Jedi. I mean, we're just talking about Obi-Wan and Satine, and between Jedi, we don't have as many examples of these relationships. So I think we're going to learn a little bit about it. I think we're going to see at least the perspective in the High Republic of how they view relationships and how they potentially manage relationship. Will we go into a lot of detail on it? I don't know. I'm not really sure how far they're going to go into that because, again, there's always still this rub of kind of forbidden love from a storytelling perspective, of, not able to engage in any kind of romantic relationship, but also where's the context of it all? And I think usually we see it in a relatively negative context, which I'm hoping we don't go down that rabbit hole yet again. I would really like to see them address it head on, at least from two characters' perspectives, and maybe it doesn't give us a total outlook of how it goes, but I think they're going to have to touch on it at some point. They keep building it up and leading into it, so it's one of those questions of why not at this point. You got something you're going to drop on us. I can just tell.
Yeah, I've been waiting to talk about this for a while.
Oh boy, here we go.
I'm trying to find the ding page number, but Famous person once said, I can't find it. Okay, so this book. All right, Into the Dark, Claudia Gray. So, if you want to know the most about Jedi relationships from a canon perspective, go pick up any one of this lady's books, Claudia Gray. I think in every book that she's done now, she has talked about this subject, and it comes up, right? Every one of them, to be honest. And the most recent one, again, Into the Dark, it explicitly, there's a character in that ass that wants to know more about Jedi. And the context is important because I know there's a lot of stuff about Geox right now, or Leox from Into the Dark, and his, whether, because he's asexual. And I'm not even getting into that because it's just a stupid conversation that people get really spun up about because they don't understand the context of how that even comes up in a book. And I get it. If you don't want it, then fine, don't pick up the book and don't read it if that's not your Star Wars. That said, in here, there is a character that they run into who's very interested in the Jedi because she doesn't know anything about. She's heard about them. She thinks they're monks. And within seconds, she approaches one of the Jedi and just blatantly just asks, does that mean you can't have sex? And it puts that Jedi on the spot. He's like, whoa, like this is kind of a very forward question. And so she explores it in that book, and she explores it in her other books. And I guess what we're seeing here is that the Jedi, at least in Master and Apprentice, right? We know that relationships were happening, but they were purely physical, right? Because they were still trying not to cross the border of attachments. And so they acknowledged that people could love each other. They could acknowledge that people had feelings. They just couldn't consummate that kind of a relationship, right? In the High Republic, they get into that a little bit more in detail. Again, different era, but they do talk about it. And it's like right in chapter 3. It's like right out of the gate, pretty early on. And so I don't want to ruin it because I do want people to go out and look at it, but there's a good way that it's explained. And again, the context is just somebody who's asking a very general question because she's heard misinformation about them, thinking they're monks or celibate, all that. He says kind of, and that's kind of the short answer is right now. They kind of are, at least in this era. But at the same time, like you mentioned, man, Avar Kriss they got a relationship. There's something going on there. And I'm starting to really, again, wonder that if these relationships, if some of these Jedi don't cross that line, which kind of helps bring an end to a lot of this stuff. And that's why they're so hard fast about no attachments and why they're so against it, because things happen in the High Republic era. And certainly with Anakin, right? I mean, that's the whole nother lesson there, right? That probably history repeated itself, but I really have a feeling that we're going to see it because it keeps coming up. And I have a feeling that we're going to see some really bad things happen to Jedi who get too attached and cross that line. So yeah, there's plenty of with Claudia Gray.
Yeah, it's curious that those concepts are coming up in a young adult novel. It surprised me. You and I talked about this a few weeks ago, and it's just surprising that these themes, in at least at that, I don't want to call it level of detail because it's not what it is, but that those themes keep coming up and that there's romantic things happening of sorts in some of these books, and even if they're allusions to some of it. And so it's very curious that's happening. And again, if you're just looking for romance in a Star Wars novel, Dark Disciple is probably the best one out there from Christy Golden. It's still one of my favorite books. It's a great story between Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos, and Obi-Wan is in there, of course. Just a really good book if you just enjoy romance. And I know that's not the question, but if you do, I can't help but plug it. Fantastic book. And the audio book is actually really, really good too. But
and remember, Qui-Gon had sex. So just leave it at that.
Are we allowed to say that word on this show?
I don't know. But yeah, sure. I think Annabelle's in bed, so we're good.
All right.
Let's see.
Social media. That was Clausen. Thank you so much, Clausen. Appreciate the question. Here we go. Social media. Grant McAllister, a longtime listener here over on Facebook. Okay, I know you guys get a lot of lore questions, so I'm going to change it up a little bit. What's your earliest or best Star Wars memory? This may have been asked on a previous show, but he couldn't remember.
Yeah.
What's your earliest one?
What are we at? Let's get into the lightning round on these. We can't spend too much more time. Okay. Earliest memory has to be seen. Oh, here, I'm going to date myself now. Boy, cover your ears if you don't want to hear this. I saw the original Star Wars movie in 1977 at a drive-in. I was very young. Thank you. But young enough to remember still, or old enough to remember, I should say. But I have very vivid images of what that was like in the experience. I mean, it was coming through like a little speaker on the, it was kind of hanging off the glass of the door. So audibly, it wasn't the greatest experience, but just seeing that as my first like theater experience, it was a drive-in, and seeing that big screen and seeing Star Wars up on that thing just blew my mind. And I remember just thinking about it all the way home. And that's really it. I mean, I think that's the very first. It's the very first because it was the first thing that we got from Star Wars. But what's yours?
Yeah, same type of thing. I didn't see Star Wars in a movie theater first because I wasn't born when the original came out. And so I remember my grandfather, my dad's dad, recorded a Return of the Jedi off of HBO on a video cassette, or VHS, kids.
Yeah.
It was our home. So he recorded this. So this was like the mid 80s before when it came out on HBO. And back then, movies came to HBO before they came on to video. Renting videos was still a bit of a new thing. So I remember, and I just remember the lead in. I forgot the young lady who was doing it. And I used to know the quote of what she was saying, but it was basically like, join. I don't know if she used the Luke and Han, and or if they used the Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford or whatever. But do this on their epic finale of Return of the Jedi, and it would start leading it in. And of course, when you play it, you get all the squiggly lines on the screen from the VHS. You just start wearing it out over time. Because this is before we had a complete set to go buy for a long time. But I just remember that. I just remember being so excited going over there every single time and be able to plug that tape in and just being enraptured by Return of the Jedi and not knowing anything else that came before it. I was born in 78. So I'm getting into that 5, 7, 8 years old by the mid 80s. And that was my first exposure to Return of the Jedi. And it still sticks with me. I can visualize it clearly, even if I can't remember all the details.
Exactly. Yep. It's just burned into your memory.
Yeah. Fun question, Grant. Thank you so much.
Unikuda from France and via Facebook says, what is your favorite era of Star Wars and why?
The easy question to this, especially for people in your and my generation, is probably original trilogy type of era. But
Whoa.
Well, I mean, I'm saying a lot of people have a default answer of original trilogy, right?
Yeah, right.
I try to get more specific. And if I really start thinking about it and of the stories that we have and the quality of the stories we have, I really think my favorite era ends up being the Clone Wars, like specifically in the Clone Wars era. And a lot of this is because we have so much of it, but some of the storytelling is just so good within it. Not all of the stories within the Clone Wars cartoon were all that great, but there were some arcs that were just fantastic. And you just have so much rich content to draw on that, to me, it's not quantity over quality, but there's so much of both within that, to where it answered a lot of questions. It raises more, and then the quality of it. It was in a time where we didn't know we needed that much Star Wars in our lives, but thank goodness we finally had it. What about you?
It's man, I don't know. It's controversial because I grew up on the original trilogy, and that's always got a place in my heart. I loved it. I love that more than I did the prequel trilogy. Not that I hated the prequel trilogy at all, but I do love it more, and I love it more than the sequel trilogy. But if I'm just talking about an era, this probably should not be a surprise for anybody. It's probably the Old Republic. And a lot of it is because I love history. I love seeing the parallels that exist that were written. They kind of went and took stories from all of the more modern tales of Star Wars and just kind of retold them a little bit differently in the original, in the Old Republic era. So that was kind of cool because they're kind of, I don't know. They're kind of stealing the stories. I get that, but the fact that they teach it, they tell it in a way that it sounds like it's a parallel and that the history repeats itself, right? Which we know it does. That is very interesting to me. And then I love the fact that there's all these different colored lightsabers and the powers and stuff. And I think that's why I'm so hooked into the High Republic, because it gives me that same kind of a feeling just reading all of that stuff. So I would say, and plus I've invested, I don't know how many years now in money, like per month I've paid in SWTOR that I continue to play. So, and I'm invested in all those storylines. And we just got a big announcement a couple of days ago. They've got more content coming out very soon. So it's just never ending. And it's been a thing that I've been so involved in. I've given 10 years of my life now to the Old Republic. So, I can't just disconnect from that. And so I feel like that is probably my favorite era. I love to go back to that era and just be in this really, really fantastic world of Star Wars that's so different than, anything else that's out there.
Well, and I agree with you. The origin side of the Force, the origin side of the Jedi, the origin side of the Sith race and the dark side users, it's so rich, and there's so many different components to it, and that it was surfacing, and Discovery and Rediscovery really are some great stories. And like you said, some of it does, circle back in life, but I do enjoy those origins. It was like a, you know, it was like the Yoda series of in the Clone Wars where he discovers, you know, basically retaining your existence after or your spirit after you die.
Mhm.
You know, same type of thing. That kind of lore aspect of things is really cool and really plays to that historical side of things. What are the things you don't know but you want to know?
Right.
All right, Unikuna, thank you so much for the question. All right, Chef Chris, who's been super active in the chat, we appreciate it, brother. Are you all surprised that the continuation of the Ezra Thrawn saga looks to be taking place during the Ahsoka years? Also, is there enough time? It looks like there will be a miniseries, but it deserves so much more.
Am I surprised? Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm surprised. We knew it was coming. I will say that I don't. Again, this is just me pure speculation. We have no insight into this. But what I hope to happen, what I think is going to happen, is we're going to get Thrawn, Ezra in the Ahsoka series, but not the full story, right? I think I would love I love for them to just set it up in that series. Maybe it's 8 episodes, 10 episodes. The last half of it we get Thrawn, and we start getting bits and pieces of where they've been. But then that becomes its own series, right? And I think they've alluded to that. Filoni's alluded to that. We're going to get a sequel to Rebels, right? Officially proper at some point, and it's not the Ahsoka series. I think that's where I would love to see the Thrawn and Ezra story play out. And maybe that's flashbacks. Maybe it just takes place then. I don't know what that looks like, but I would love to see that in there. And I think if they do that, then I think it'll do it justice because they'll have a lot more bandwidth, a lot more runway to tell that story and give us what we really want. A lot of us really want from Ezra and from Thrawn and all that. And I know, so Chris, I know he had another question that I saw on Instagram. I didn't put it in here, and it was, is Thrawn a bad guy? Is he evil? Thrawn Ascendancy, I got it. I don't have the physical book, but I got the ebook today. Jonesy, I think you got it too. Yep. They just sent it out. So I have not had a chance to dive into it, but those books kind of really changed my perspective on Thrawn. Maybe it didn't change it. I would say it just kind of finalized it, or I don't know, solidified it in some way, right? Like I don't feel he's a evil character. He's not a bad person. I mean, he's complicated, right? And
right.
It's one of those characters that you love these characters that are neither good nor bad. I know some people have a problem with that. They don't like the fact that they're kind of always walking the middle and they're always gray, and the good guys have bad intentions and the bad guys have good intentions, and it kind of dilutes the whole, good versus evil thing. But Thrawn really is a very, very rich character in terms of his history and his upbringing and where we see him in different phases of Star Wars, that it's really hard to just kind of, put him in a hole of bad or good. He really is kind of right down the middle. Yeah. So I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think he's evil, but he's, he's got good and bad to him. How about that?
Right. And with Ahsoka, I hope the Ahsoka series is dedicated to Ahsoka. We can use Ezra and Thrawn as the MacGuffin. I really hope it's dedicated to Ahsoka. And like you said, then we can pick up and give Thrawn or Ezra or whatever their own due time. And I think that's what I think they deserve that, because they are rich enough characters to be able to do, especially Thrawn. And I'm with you. And my dad once told me, Albert, that he said the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. And I find the people who are indifferent are the most dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And while Thrawn is not indifferent, he's about as close as you can get to just being so practical that
pragmatic.
It borders on it that there is no good and bad. There is only the best decision in that moment. And he does have beliefs. He does have a core belief system of what he believes is right and wrong of sorts. But it's just this calculation. Everything is a calculation with him that it's difficult at times to understand what his motivation is and what he's truly trying to drive at. And, his relationship with his people and all these other things. It's really a really cool character to grab onto. And what's his affiliation with the Empire? And, where's his loyalties lie? And the first trilogy talked a little bit about that with loyalties. And so it's really good books, and Tim Zahn's killing it on these books. And yeah, we just got Ascendancy today, and super excited to start digging through that one and see what book 2 in this trilogy looks like.
Yep. I don't have time this week, but next week I will get to that.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. John Marty from Instagram says, should Disney make a Rogue 2? The premise being, this is a cool question. The premise being the Bothan spies that Mon Mothma speaks so solemnly of in Return of the Jedi, who brought the plans to the Death Star 2 to the Rebels. Hadn't thought about that, but it's your question first.
Yeah, as a Rogue.
Answer.
So I'm curious if like Rangers of the New Republic is going to be something of this, something of a Rogue 2, because it just, we don't know much about it, but it kind of seems like it has that vibe. And so I don't know if that's kind of replacing such a thing. I don't know if I want a Rogue 2. Rogue One was such a clean, and now I know we're probably using Rogue 2 as a very general statement.
Yeah,
just
right.
that style of movie, or something within that. And would it be? I think to me, is it going to the well again on that type of thing where we're saying, okay, well, we're going to lead into Return of the Jedi with Bothan spies and things like that, and maybe, but I don't know. There has to be a story there. And what the cool thing about that was it would be completely fresh. You don't really have anything to really go on. They didn't really share anything about how they did it. They just kind of got it. So I think it's possible. I want to see what Rangers of the New Republic looks like first, and see if that has the same vibe. And if that does okay, if that has the same feeling to it, then I'm going to say I don't need a Rogue 2 type of story again. I think we already have it, but if they went into and did it well, sure. But those are the movies that are really tough to make because I think they can fall apart really quickly.
Yeah. I mean, had you told me several years ago that the story of how the Death Star plans got to Princess Leia would be turned into a movie and would be a phenomenal movie, I would not have believed you, right? That said, I don't know that the Bothan one is going to have enough weight in it to turn into a movie. Where I would like to see it, though, is it's probably no surprise that we're going to get at the 40th anniversary, from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi stories. And maybe it's a story that's told there. I think that would be really neat just to kind of see that.
That'd be that's actually a great point.
But I don't know that, again, I could be wrong. Like I said, I would never thought the story again of the plans from right before episode 4 would be turned into this full-fledged movie like that and be so rich and engaging and emotional, right? So I don't want to put it against. I just don't know that Bothan spies really lend themselves to being, characters we can relate to because they're not really the cutest looking people. But yeah, I would love to hear that or see that, read that, I guess, in from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi. Okay, I think you got the last question, right?
Yep, thanks, John. Corona727 on Instagram. You think Phasma's staff could possibly be the Mandalorians? So this is the staff that Din had. I think we have a pretty clear picture of this one, though. Yeah, no, I like the idea, but I think if you read the Phasma novel, you get insight as to how she comes about, how she gets that spear. So it's actually Quicksilver, I believe. It's not
Beskar.
Beskar, right?
Yeah, but no, it's cool. When I read this, I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute!" I was like, "Oh, wait, no." We
had to think about it, right?
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, it was like jarring because I thought, "Wow, how did we all miss this?" But yeah, it's covered in the Phasma novel, but it does look very similar. I mean, if I had to, put them next to each other, you probably couldn't tell them apart. So
yeah, and supposedly it can collapse on itself and be more portable, and it extends. It's got a lot of other features, if you will.
Phasma's does, yeah.
Phasma, right? Yeah.
Right.
And we don't have any suggestions that that's any of that one, but yeah, they look very similar, but they don't appear to be related at all.
Right. Okay. I think that's it. We've got, just quickly before we get out of here, I know we're at hour and 32, pretty good time. So we did want to talk about one review that we got, and I won't read the whole thing because there's kind of a question in this. So I just want to say thank you to Dubliner27 who gave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you so much for that. And it's titled High Republic, great in-depth review. I think he's talking about the 5 episodes we dedicated to Light of the Jedi. A couple
hours.
A number of hours there. He says a number of points on discussion on the number of Jedi, and he gets into this whole thing about Yoda. And I'll kind of paraphrase, but he gets in this. I think there's a question here, and I turned it into a question. But here's what I did. Here's how I extrapolated the whole thing because there's a lot here. But it says, how much of what the High Republic go through with the Nihil, and that I'm sorry, let me back up. Given what we know the High Republic Jedi go through with the Nihil, and making the decision in Light of the Jedi, Jorah casts that final vote. It puts them into war. They go against the Jedi. How much of that decision weighs on Yoda in the Clone Wars and deciding, or prior to the Clone Wars and going to war then? Because it is kind of like what I was talking about earlier. It is history repeating itself. They are not warriors. They're true guardians, and yet they're put in this position to become warriors. Right. And before we came on the air, I was telling Jonesy, like, this is, when I first read the book, actually several times until I read this question. It didn't dawn on me that Yoda was purposely left out of the decision-making process. And on the surface, it just feels like, okay, how convenient, right? He's not there because he's off doing the comic book thing, right? From the High Republic Adventures comic book. So he wasn't there. But at the same time, he's seeing what happens. He's going to see what happens in the fall of the High Republic and what going to war with the Nihil did. And that changes, for me, it changes the dynamic of his decision and how much it just weighs on him even more, having to go through and making the call to, let's engage with, the Separatists and go to war, against them and Count Dooku and all that. So it is a very cool question. And I hope they explore that a little more. They haven't yet in any of the High Republic content just yet, but that's kind of what the gist of his comments were, and how much that weighed on Yoda there.
Fantastic.
So yeah, thank you for that. Okay, that's it. That brings us to all of the questions. And so the winner of the free copy of Into the Dark, I think we both agreed that it was Utini's question. So Dante, thank you for that. It was a great question because we've never answered it. But also it's a unique perspective and really makes you think about, if I only knew then what I knew now, or what I know now, how would that have been? So his question was, 40 years later, what would you have told yourself back in 1983 question? So,
when he asked this question, I had a visual, when the Flash is like giving this vision to Bruce Wayne in what was it, Justice League, or is it Batman versus Superman? One of the two. And he's like, blah, 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 trust your, and this is kind of what Dante sparked to me. We don't ever give DC any love, so I just thought I'd give DC some. That probably made no sense to 80% of the people listening to the show. Maybe you are welcome yet again. I have delivered what I'm good for. Yeah. Congrats, Dante. Yeah, great question. It was a really cool perspective, and we wanted to recognize that. So thanks, man.
Yes. And speaking of Dante, so I don't think we've announced it officially. So if you guys don't know, we've been doing this this kind of bonus show called From a Certain Point of View, where we're bringing people on that are avid listeners, followers of the show, giving them an option or giving them the choice to bring whatever topic they want to bring on. And we kind of just talk about it for 30, 45 minutes or whatever. And believe it or not, coincidentally, and this didn't weigh into the decision to give him a book because we're not going to pay him for anything for doing this. We're going to have Dante will be on. So he's been a long time Patreon member. We had a chance to meet up with him at Celebration. We sat next to him at one of the presentations, which was really awesome in the stadium there. So we're going to have him on very soon to do a recording of his show. I won't spoil what his discussion is. It has to do with Force Visions. That's all I'll say. But yeah, he's got I know he's had a blog in the past, a website. He's got a lot of opinions, really great opinions and thoughts and perspective and speculation on Star Wars. So we're pretty excited to finally get him a voice here on the show. So that's coming very soon. Look for that. Again, it'll be a bonus show in the next coming weeks here. So
Dante is also the unofficial fact checker for the Cantina Cast. So we appreciate him filling that role.
That's right.
Keeping us honest.
All right, man. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you so much for a very engaging and active chat. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for all the questions and the feedback and the comments there. Please follow us on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to, like the show, throw in a review on iTunes for us. We've got Patreon if you want to support the show, keep the lights on kind of thing. We've got the 40th. Wow, I'm getting ahead of myself. We've got the 10th anniversary show merchandise that's all up on, what is it? What's the name of that website? TeePublic. Yep. Mm-hmm. So all these links are in the show notes, right? So you can see them there, and I think they're on the YouTube channel as well. So please just, support us, and thank you guys for keeping everything going here. Anything before we get out of here?
Yeah, all the same links, eargluemedia.com. Please join us in Discord. Lots of great conversation lately, Star Wars and non-Star Wars, eargluemedia.com/Discord. We'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the questions we had tonight. And all the people who are in the chat, Kayla, Chris, Dante, Steph, Twan, Jonathan, the Force Choke podcast guys. I'm sure I'm missing a handful of others as well. But man, thank you all so much for a really active chat tonight. We do live stream this usually on Sunday nights, but sometimes on Tuesdays. And so just like Albert said, check the social media feeds. They will advertise when they are. So we would love for you guys to come participate and listen to the show and give us feedback. We love commenting as we go through, especially if we have some really good things, and bring them up and give credit where credit is due. So appreciate everyone for coming out.
Yep. All right. With that, we'll see you on the next show.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.